The Sea Peoples are among the most haunting mysteries of ancient history. They appeared suddenly, struck with terrifying force, and vanished just as quickly, leaving behind burning cities, shattered empires, and unanswered questions. Unlike famous conquerors whose names dominate history books, the Sea Peoples left no clear identity, no surviving language, and no definitive homeland. What remains are fragments, carved reliefs, desperate inscriptions, and the ruins of civilizations that once ruled the ancient world. Their story is not just about invasion. It is about collapse, chaos, and the fragile balance that holds civilizations together. Around 1200 BC, the ancient world entered a period of crisis known as the Late Bronze Age collapse. Powerful empires that had dominated the Mediterranean and Near East for centuries began to fall almost simultaneously. The Mycenaean palaces of Greece were destroyed. The mighty Hittite Empire disappeared. Cities in Anatolia and the Levant were burned, and even Egypt, one of history's most resilient civilizations, barely survived. At the center of this catastrophe stood a shadowy force recorded in Egyptian texts as the Sea Peoples. Our knowledge of the Sea Peoples comes primarily from Egyptian records, especially inscriptions from the reigns of pharaohs Merneptah and Ramesses III. These texts describe vast groups of warriors arriving by land and sea, attacking coastal cities and entire kingdoms. They are shown in carvings, wearing horned helmets, carrying round shields, and traveling with women and children, suggesting migration rather than simple raiding. The Egyptians listed several names among them, including the Peliset, Shuden, Shekelesh, Dinaon, and but never explained where they came from or why they were moving. What makes the Sea Peoples so unsettling is how effective they were. Kingdoms that had stood for centuries collapsed in a matter of years. Trade networks broke down, writing systems disappeared, and once great cities were abandoned. Bronze Age societies depended on complex systems of trade for metals, food, and luxury goods. When those networks failed, the entire structure unraveled. The Sea Peoples did not merely attack cities. They struck at a system already under strain, accelerating a collapse that no empire could stop. For a long time, historians blamed the Sea Peoples alone for this destruction, portraying them as savage invaders who ended an era. But modern research suggests a more complicated story. The Late Bronze Age world was already facing severe stress. Climate change likely caused prolonged droughts, leading to famine and mass migration. Earthquakes may have destroyed key cities. Internal rebellions weakened governments. When people could no longer survive where they lived, movement became inevitable. The Sea Peoples may not have been a single group, but many displaced populations pushed into motion by environmental and economic collapse. This raises an uncomfortable possibility. The Sea Peoples might not have been villains, but refugees with weapons. As they moved in search of land and resources, they clashed with established powers that could no longer defend themselves. Their attacks were not random acts of destruction, but desperate attempts to survive in a world that was falling apart. The ancient empires they encountered were powerful on paper, but fragile in reality. Egypt provides the clearest example of this confrontation. During the reign of Ramesses III, the Sea Peoples launched a massive invasion by both land and sea. Egyptian reliefs show intense naval battles, with enemy ships trapped and destroyed along the Nile Delta. Ramesses claimed a great victory, presenting himself as the savior of Egypt. And in a sense, he was. Egypt survived, but only barely. Afterward, it never regained its former imperial power. Even in victory, the cost was enormous. One of the greatest mysteries is what happened to the Sea Peoples after their defeat. Some appeared to have settled in the regions they attacked. The Peliset are often linked to the Philistines, who later became famous as rivals of ancient Israel. Other groups may have merged with local populations, disappearing into history. Their identities dissolved, but their impact remained. The world they helped reshape was fundamentally different from the one that came before. The collapse triggered by this period marked the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of a long, dark transition. Literacy declined, large-scale construction stopped, and political organization became simpler. It took centuries for new civilizations to rise from the ruins. Iron technology eventually replaced bronze. Trade networks were rebuilt, and new cultures emerged. But the memory of the old world faded into legend. The Sea Peoples remain a mystery not because we lack evidence of their destruction, but because their story does not fit neatly into traditional history. They were not an empire. They had no capital, no king, no lasting monuments. They were a symptom of a world in crisis, not its sole cause. Their sudden appearance reminds us that civilizations do not always fall to powerful enemies. Sometimes they collapse because the systems supporting them can no longer hold. What makes the story of the Sea People so relevant today is how modern it feels. Climate stress, mass migration, economic instability, and fragile political systems are not ancient problems. The late Bronze Age collapse shows how interconnected societies can unravel quickly when multiple pressures collide. The Sea Peoples were not the beginning of the end, but the final wave that broke already weakened shores. In the end, the Sea Peoples were neither myth nor mystery monsters from the sea. They were real people caught in extraordinary circumstances, moving through a collapsing world. Their legacy is written not in their own words, but in the ruins they left behind. And through those ruins, they remind us that even the greatest civilizations are only as strong as the systems that sustain them.